Good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome into the Volquest mailbag podcast. I'm Eric Kane, Brent Hubbs, Rob Lewis, and who's that guy? I hadn't seen him in a couple of weeks. Is that Austin Price?
I'm back, baby.
All right, he's rested. Are you going on vacation with the kids? Are you rested and refueled, or are you tired coming home?
Well, I'm only tired because my body is, because we went to Alaska, so my body's on Alaska time. So, like, getting out of bed is much more of a issue than it normally is. Normally, I'm up 6:37 at the latest 8 o'clock, and I woke up at 10:15 this morning, and I had agreed to tape something with Josh Newberg for his show. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've overslept. But it was 10 his time, which meant 11 my time. So I'm like, oh, man, I'm sorry. I'll be there. And like, as soon as I can throw a shirt on, oh, wait, never mind. I've got 45 minutes. Like, my mind is, woo.
Hey, AP, can you show everybody your fur-lined Peter Millar slippers? Your seal fur that you got up there?
Fur trappers, baby. Fur trap. Peter Millar is the original fur trapper.
Is there any Peter Millar available in Sitka? Or Ketchikan?
No, I don't believe there was.
So no souvenir shopping for AP on this trip is what that boils down to.
That's not true. I went to Caraloha. They have fantastic bamboo t-shirts. So
all this hashtag analysis that is brought to you by our friends Exterior Home Solutions, making this coverage possible. Summer storms, siding repairs, deck repairs, roofing repairs, or just renovations, whatever the case may be. If you have something you want to do with your home, give Exterior Home Solutions a call today. A free estimate, 865-524-5888. And you can always visit them online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. We got a lot of questions to get into. We'll go ahead and start with Rocky Top T. It says, I see Florida, South Carolina, Texas A&M, and Kentucky as toss-up games. I think Tennessee needs at least 3 of those wins. Do you think that Tennessee gets them? Rob, we can start with you.
I'm AP today. I think Tennessee gets them all. I'm joking, but I'm not joking. I really do. I've been doing all the previews, the opponent previews, for the past couple of weeks. I think Tennessee wins all those games. I mean, everybody needs transfers to hit in college football these days. Kentucky really needs transfers. I mean, Devin Leary has got to be the guy. And he probably will be, pretty good. If you go back to 2021, he was outstanding at quarterback for Kentucky. But still, they lost a lot. I don't want to get into the details. Kentucky's got some holes. Start with the offensive line. Texas A&M. I want Brett Hubbs' opinion on this marriage. I think Bobby Petrino and Jimbo Fisher is the biggest. I mean, it could be a home run, or it could be a strikeout on 3 pitches looking.
It's got all the possibilities of being a Kardashian marriage, or it's got the possibilities of being something that lasts for a good 4 or 5 years till Bobby Petrino gets a head job somewhere else. He's not looking to stay there forever. He's going to try to leverage it to get another job, be a head coach somewhere, I'm sure. But it could be. I mean, it could be ugly. It could be a quick annulment. I'm telling you, it could be bad.
They play Texas A&M October 14th. It wouldn't shock me if Petrino didn't make the trip.
I mean, DJ Durkin, when he's the safest bet you have as a coordinator. Listen, I think DJ does a good job, but he's an emotional roller coaster. I mean, look how he was with Lane. At several different stops, he is the level-headed one out of that trio. So, Hubbs is right and Rob's right. This thing's got – I don't think there's any middle ground. I think it's either going to be, wow, this is the best move that Jimbo could have ever made, or what were you thinking? See ya.
Well, and A&M also, they've got the Wegman kid at quarterback who, played really well at the end of last year, but was a true freshman. You don't know what you have there. I just think they're a big unknown. They've been stacking big-time recruiting classes right on top of each other for the past 3 or 4 years. So there's talent there. But I like Tennessee's chances. And I think in Florida was the other one he mentioned.
Yeah.
I think that's a great team to be playing early in the season. 2 new coordinators, transfer quarterback. Just a lot of new parts there. I think that's I think you're really glad to be playing Florida in week 3.
South Carolina as well, Rob.
Man, I mean, right after what happened last year, you can't discount them. But I don't know if anybody is relying on the transfer portal as hard as South Carolina is, and not big, not quarterback and that kind of stuff like Florida and Kentucky are, but just, I mean, they've got a lot of pieces at receiver, running back. I mean, that has to hit secondary. And again, after what happened last year, you just can't discount them. But and Rattler, I mean, if you take out what Rattler did against Tennessee and Clemson last year, which you can't do, but if you, I mean, he threw for like 2,600 yards, like he threw for 850 in those last 2 games. He threw for 16 touchdowns on the year. He threw 6 against Tennessee, and I mean, more than a third of his scoring tosses. I like Tennessee in all those games, and I think catching South Carolina at home is huge. Playing Texas A&M at home is huge. I have no respect for Kentucky. I could be proven wrong in that one, but I like Tennessee to win all those.
For me, I think the only lock. I mean, Kentucky just traditionally is a lock, but I do think that they're going to be more competitive this year. I think the game is way more competitive than it was last year with Leary at quarterback, because I do think he's a good player. Still would take Tennessee there. I think a lock is the South Carolina game. If Josh Heupel said you get 1 win, Josh, it's all you get all year. You get to pick it though, and by however many points you want it by. He's taking South Carolina by a billion, so I'm taking South Carolina
if that's a night game,
I'm thinking I'm going to get curb stomped. It's July 12th, 13th, whatever it is. It's that's my mid-July hot take, because I think South Carolina takes it on the chin here. I do think A&M is a total coin flip game. I think they're the great unknown in the SEC because, as you said, Rob, they have stockpiled. Now, they've lost some of those recruits to the transfer portal because, they didn't either make payment or whatever it was that, the reason they left. Who knows? That's just all the fodder out there. Either way, I think they're the great unknown because they still do have talent. And what's the coaching staff dynamic going to be like? If it's a good marriage, that's great. And then Florida, Hubbard, I mean, if Tennessee was ever going to win at the Swamp, you would think it'd have to be this year, down as Florida is. But, Tennessee's not won down there in 20 years. And so, to quote you got to see it to believe it. To me, that's actually pretty valid this year, just based off going on the road. It's a tough place to play early, and Florida always has a certain edge when they play Tennessee because they think they own the series, which they have traditionally the last 20 years. So, if Tennessee gets by Florida, then I think that there's a great chance that that they're undefeated heading into Alabama.
Based on my Tuesday performance on the podcast, I've got the Vols winning everything, unbeaten.
I meant to tell you, Hubbard,
greatest team ever assembled in college football.
They're better than the 39 team. They got a lot of points.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hubbard, I meant to tell you. I mean, a lot of listeners don't know, but I have a son who's going to be a senior at UT next year. He listened to the podcast and called me Tuesday night. He's like, "Dad, I just gave up my student tickets."
That's exactly right.
I was sure to say he was listening as he was going across the Henley Street Bridge and just veered right.
He just jumped off, Pete.
I mean, I only said they were going to win 9 games, but I had a bad day. So
hey, Hubbard, we'll move on to the next question. They've only won more than 8 one time since 2007. Oh, that was last year. So I mean, picking him to win 9 is actually pretty nice.
Hey, Pete, this is a tangent. This is I told you guys doing the previews. This I ran across this stat. Just blew my mind. Kentucky, in the history of the program, has 22 7-win seasons. In history. That's pretty. And Mark Stoops has 6 of them.
Oh, I can believe that. And all of that cake schedule he's had.
He plays Mississippi State every year. It kills you, doesn't it?
Well,
all right, let's move on.
Let's not move on.
We got 10 minutes on one question. We're not making good progress here.
We're going to work on Hubs' issues here. We're going to work through it.
I don't have any issues. I'm good.
Lay on the couch, over. I'll walk you through it.
All right. Welcome back, AP. Let's get this one from Southerner 98. What is more likely to occur? Here we go.
Ready?
Landing all 3 of Amari Jefferson, Mike Matthews, Ryan Wingo, or getting 1 of Aiden Breland or Brandon Baker?
The receivers.
So you're saying that they have a really good shot at those all three receivers, or
I
you're
think
saying
there's a better
they
chance.
have a
I think
less
there's
than
a
a
better
puncher's
chance
chance at the other two?
I think that I think there's a better chance they land all three receivers than land one of the other two. The other two are just, I mean, they're shots in the dark. You swing, you hope to connect, right? Like, but can you be Buster Douglas for one of those two guys? And that's kind of how I look at the other two. I think they'll get in here at the end of the month. You take your shot, see if you can get them back in here officially, sometime this fall. And I think that's the biggest key for Tennessee is, can you do enough if they make it in here at the end of July to get them back for an official visit in season? If that happens, then, who knows? But right now, kind of where they are with Wingo, Matthews, and Jefferson, I would take the chances of running all three of those, over landing one of the other two.
Ball by Grace, understanding that nobody's had a bad summer of workouts and everyone's working harder than ever before. Are there any newcomers that have taken a step in the weight room this offseason, Brent?
Well, he said non-newcomers.
Non-newcomers. See, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, is anybody not stronger than they were a year ago? No, I don't. I mean, they've all added in the weight room. Guys have gotten stronger. It happens every year. I don't know that there's anybody who you're going to look at that's like Austin, who's a returning player that you go, wow, that guy's just totally different than he was last season from a physical standpoint. I mean, Squirrel's not put on 25 pounds, right? I mean, it's not who his body is. So, I don't know that there's anybody who's dramatically different than they were a year ago physically who was on this team. But I don't think anybody has regressed. I mean, I think they're all, stronger. Some guys have lost some weight. I mean, they've gotten leaner and lost some body fat, but that's by design. I mean, I think Bryson Easton looks better than he's ever looked. But from a weight standpoint, he's not dramatically different. He's lost some body fat, moved some stuff around, but he's the same size he was a year ago. He just looks different.
So you're telling me they didn't take Squirrel and make him like Bane from Batman Forever, where he goes from this little scrawny guy to like.
Never saw it. Have no clue.
That's unbelievable, Hubs.
Don't get that reference.
Let's go to Glog Vols. Who do you think will be the three highest draft picks in 2023, Rob? I guess it'd be 2024. Yeah, for the draft.
Three highest draft picks off this roster. Man, I'd like to see them play first, but you throw Brew McCoy in there? I mean, if he has, this is complete speculation, but if he has the year that a lot of people, think he might have, and the way receivers produce here, Thornton, I would think would have a shot. I mean, I know AP's thrown him out there as a one and done type guy, and if Milton throws for 3,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, he's going to get drafted pretty early. But I don't think there's not a day one guy, is there? Like that?
Oh yeah,
this year.
Yeah, I mean, listen. If Hubs and I had a discussion, if Tennessee does what Hubs predicted them to do, and they win 9 games, that means Joe Milton has put up some numbers.
You think Milton is a day one guy?
Yeah, I think he's a lock top 10 pick if they go 9-3.
How old is he?
He's not as old as he's ended.
23.
He's 23.
You think top 10 pick?
I think because his skill set, he will pro day that thing like nobody's business. Again, he'll be coming off, as Hub said, 9-3 or better, and that means he's won some games. I think he's a locked top 10 pick if he goes 9-3 and he's the starter all year. And
I think he'll get picked apart on film.
Well, here's the thing. There's a couple things with
Anthony
Joe.
Richardson.
Here comes my weapon.
He doesn't. You ain't gonna see Joe Milton run like Anthony Richardson ever in your life.
Well, I agree with that athletically, but if Anthony Richardson performs well as a rookie with the Colts, if he does some good things, if at the end of the year the Indianapolis Colts are saying, "Hey, I've found my quarterback," that helps Joe Milton's stock. If at the end of the year people are thinking Anthony Richardson is Jamarcus Russell, it will hurt Joe Milton's stock. So Anthony Richardson's important. Here's the other thing too. I mean, you got what? Caleb Williams, Drake May, definitely going to get drafted in front of Joe Milton for sure. I haven't looked at who all else is out there possibly. how many in the top 10 need a quarterback this year versus what we saw last year in the draft? I don't think Joe Milton's a top 10 pick. I'm not sure he's a first day pick, but if he does what Austin's saying, I think there's a great chance he's a first day pick if he puts up big numbers. I'm not sure he's a top 10 pick, though.
Another question here from Glock Vols. Does Tennessee have the talent depth in 2023 to make a national championship run? We talk about roster management and building the roster, having depth in key areas, much better than what it was, obviously, when Heupel took over. But Austin, is it where it needs to be right now to make a run at a natty?
Dang, we're sitting here 5 minutes ago talking about whether the Vols can get past Florida, and for the first time in 20 years in Gainesville, now we've got them going to the playoff. I think they do. I think that if they're going to make a run, it's more so this year than next year. Because Hubs and I've had this discussion, and I think Hubs put this on the board. Like the number of offensive and defensive linemen they could potentially lose after this year is pretty drastic on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And so, I think if you're going to make a run, it probably ought to be this year. And again, the schedule sets up, pretty good for you. You don't have any like juggernaut in September. There could be some tough games, but you can kind of wade into the pool there. And, A&M's the toss game. I think Tennessee can beat Alabama and Tuscaloosa, which is mind-boggling for me to say. And then, you get to November and see what happens with Georgia. And again, if you don't have a stumble game and you're sitting there at 1 or 2 losses, you're going to be in competition for the playoffs.
Got to stay healthy in some key spots. They don't have enough depth in some key spots to overcome an injury. Now, you can say that about everybody in the country. I get that, right? I mean, if you lose your starting quarterback, Rob, that generally dramatically changes kind of who you are and what you are. So I'm not talking about that. But right now, you look at where Tennessee's at on the offensive line. They don't have a lot of guys in the 2 deep that you're just that's kind of that number 6 guy is really good, right? They don't have an obvious answer at center if you have an injury at center. There'll be lots of growing pains there. So there's some key areas where they have to stay healthy. And again, I think you can make that case for everybody for most everybody around the country that they can't sustain significant injury in some key spots. I think Tennessee's still got probably more key spots where they can't sustain an injury than some other teams in the country. So to make a run, you better stay healthy.
We'll go to Gator Dog. What is the biggest concern you have for college football moving forward? Players becoming employees, conference realignment, NIL, etc. Rob, you want to answer this one?
None of those things really concern me. I mean, Tennessee has a 100,000-seat stadium. They're going to sell how many tickets they just sell for the season? 70, Hover?
Yeah, over 70,000.
Yeah, it's. I mean, those 70,000 people are going to buy. If Joe Milton's on a billboard, or if he's a university employee, those 70,000 people are going to show up, tailgate, and make 7 Saturdays, kind of their biggest weekends of the year. And it's going to be that way all over this conference, and millions and millions of people are going to watch football every Saturday. So, I mean, things are going to change. They're going to be different. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I don't know about the employee thing, and I know there's talk about rev sharing and some different stuff like that to try to combat the NIL deal. I don't know how any of that's going to play out, or if it's going to play out. If there's any one concern, it would be, can you continue to rake in these huge television right numbers? Because you don't have – look at the Pac-12. Now, their product's not nearly as good, right, AP? What they're putting out there is not nearly as good. But they've struggled to get a broadcast deal together. So and we're seeing obviously the cord cutting. We're seeing companies downsize in a lot of ways. Can that number continue to escalate and grow at the pace that athletic departments are paying, building, and employing all the people that they're employing? That would be one way out there concern. I don't think anybody's going bankrupt in the rights game. But that would be the only kind of concern that I could potentially see way on down the road, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't disagree. The money does, at some point, even with the NIL stuff, at some point, like it dries up. I'm not saying that it's ever going to go totally dry. So it's going to, I think the noose gets tightened on on what TV contracts you can do, or what universities can spend, or what donors are willing to give. And so I think that this still boils down to the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, because the teams that can financially handle when the noose gets tightened a little bit, the better.
I mean,
yeah, and I know there's state bonds and everything out there. Rob, I don't know that I saw a day where Tennessee would have $500 million of facility projects going at the same time.
Oh, it's nuts. But I mean, also, don't you think? I mean, I wouldn't say this is a concern. It's not something that keeps me up at night or worries me. And I know I'm not the only person that thinks this. But I think because of what you're talking about, the money and the people that can take care of themselves. I mean, I do think we'll see a break eventually, where the not even all the Power Five, but the big boys. I think we'll leave the NCAA. But I don't know if that happens in 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years. But I think with the way they're raking in money, I mean, why are you going to allow the NCAA to tell you what to do or how to run your business or how to operate when you're making the kind of money from ESPN and the college football playoff, which the NCAA does not control.
Well, look at all the laws getting changed. They're not getting changed because the
state laws,
these state representatives are going, man, let's do this. The schools are pushing for the laws to be changed to where the NCAA can't come after them for, inducements or NIL stuff. That they can't come after the collectives. These are schools pushing their state representatives who are big Texas A&M fans or big Texas fans or big Missouri fans or whoever. And I expect them to get changed in this state. I think that it all comes back to, trying to protect yourself against, the big bad NCAA. And so I think ultimately, that's why you're seeing a lot of these, state laws get changed to kind of basically disprove what Rob just said is true.
Yeah. And I think that
ways.
Yeah, and I think that's when you look at, Eric, the biggest, and I know we got to move to the next one, but you look at the biggest concern. It's who are you going to be able to police it in any way, shape, or form? Because the NCAA seems to be losing power on a lot of different fronts, including state laws. So how is the game governed? I think is one question. Even when they break away, who's going to govern it? Who's going to be the commissioner, so to speak, when it breaks away? I think that, but that may be 2 decades from now, as Rob mentioned. I'm with Rob. I don't go to bed at night going, man, I'm not sure college football is going to be. I'm not sure how healthy it's going to be in the morning when I wake up, because they're a long ways from being in those kind of situations, I think.
But I mean, there's been talk like this for years, right? About Power Fives breaking away, and one thing's for certain, we're closer now with everything going on than obviously we've ever been. So it can be in 2 decades, it can be in 3 or 4 or 5 years or whatever, but closer now than it's ever been to becoming a reality.
They've been talking about it since Kirby Puckett patrolled the outfield, Gator.
Early 90s, baby. Early 90s, he was a stud. All right, we got plenty more to get into with the Volquest Mailbag Podcast, but first, let's get a word in from our proud sponsors, Exterior Home Solutions.
Life happens, and damage to your home can be extremely stressful. That's why it's important to find someone who offers efficient, quality work with financing options. Exterior Home Solutions, they value not only family, but community, and they're who I call when life happens, and you should too.
All right, let's continue on here. We'll go to Dalval 14. He's got a couple. This one's a little lengthy. How will teams handle the SEC championship and the 12-team playoff era? I ask this because it's interesting dynamic. If you miss it and you understand you're the third SEC team in the playoff, you won't get a bye week, but the 2 teams in the SEC championship game are playing a de facto round 1 game as it is.
I don't think anybody's going to tank it. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to play it like it's week 17 of the NFL regular season and set all their starters. I mean, I don't see that being the case. I think you go play to win is what you're going to end up doing, because I do still think there'll be some stuff on the line, whether it's a bye you're playing for. Obviously, you're playing for a championship. I don't think kids are pro enough that you can say, okay, we're going to set everybody this week. I mean, why don't they set all the starters when you're playing, whatever school, directional school that you're favored by 65 points for, right? Coaches still play everybody in the first quarter, and then when they get a big lead, they pull everybody out. I mean, those would be games you just set everybody and play it as a JV team, right? Nobody's doing that. I don't think anybody's tanking a game in a championship game for concerns of, I guess, maybe injury or whatever if they're already considered a lock for the playoff.
Agreed.
Our guy Logan Bartlett wants to know who was a kid you saw earlier in your career at Tennessee or early in their career at Tennessee that really surprised you with how far they were able to take their career into the NFL. I think a good example of that here recently would probably be Cedric Tillman, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how Cedric does in the NFL in terms of what his long-term career is. I think a couple of guys for me, my buddy Ramon Foster. I didn't see Ramon. I thought Ramon was a good player at Tennessee, but I did not see him having, a decade-plus career in the National Football League when he went to the Steelers. So he would be one that jumps out at me that way. Denarius Moore had a longer career than I thought. Luke Stocker held on forever in the NFL. They didn't throw him the ball, but I mean, he's a guy who had a long career. Jakob Johnson, I never saw playing in the National Football League. There's a handful of guys that jump out to me, AP.
Abreu Franklin had a nice little run in the NFL and didn't do much here. I'll tell you one who started his career here, did not finish his career here. But the more I'm around him, the more I'm impressed by him is Lee Smith. He was here for 37 seconds, got dismissed, could have pouted and hung his head. He went to Marshall, just kind of went to work and got in the league and played a decade in the league. And, kudos to him. Now he's doing some great things out here, not too far from where I live, with his gym, Triple F, and, a guy that just, again, a good old hometown boy who really loved the Vols, and it didn't work out, but he did not hang his head, and he just kind of went to work and paid off with a decade in the NFL.
You guys are missing you're missing the all-time best one.
All right.
Morgan Cox.
Morgan. Well, he's
a specialist, though.
Millionaire long snapper. I mean, he's still playing.
Yeah, but I mean that's a special. I mean that's a specialty position that he does really, really
Eric,
well.
What was the question? The question say not including specialists. Who are some guys on the came through? That's
true.
Morgan's played.
Not.
I think he's getting ready to start year 14.
And what's amazing with that is, I mean, he's been so good that teams. I mean, what's his minimal right now? Right, as a 14-year veteran, what's his salary now compared to a guy who's in his second or third year? I mean, you could clearly go cheaper with a long snapper, but he's been so good and so consistent that somebody's willing to pay him the minimal, which at his
it's seven figures
at his tenure in the NFL is a lot higher than somebody who's in their second or third year in the NFL, which says a lot about him. I would have lost a bet if somebody said Kendall Vickers was in the NFL right now.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I wouldn't have won that bet. So there's several of those guys out there.
How about Shy Tuttle? I mean, he was a great recruit, big time recruit, but so many injuries here. He just signed his second contract.
Yep, he did. Got paid.
Another question here from Logan. It's a good one. Who was the unsung hero of the Philip Fulmer era on the coaching staff or the football office, and what do they bring specifically? What do they do well?
Well, I think Philip had a really good recruiting office and brought a lot of people through a long time. I know Scott Altizer's back now, but you look at the people that have come through that office that are running recruiting shops around the country or were groomed and learned here. I think they did a good job. I think David Blackburn was a key cog for Philip Fulmer in navigating some different things when he was here. I think he played a really important role. The best strength coach Philip Fulmer ever had was John Stuckey. Nobody knew John very well because John didn't want to be known very well. But John Stuckey changed the direction of the program with the style of training that they went through and their strength and conditioning. Tennessee became a much more physical team, but remained athletic and got more athletic as they got more physical. because of what John Stuckey brought to the table as a strength coach. That's, to me, that's the most important hire Philip Fulmer ever made, was John Stuckey.
Rolling for life. Pull out your crystal ball, not for a commit, obviously, but when the 2023 football season ends, who is Tennessee's leading receiver, rusher, tackler, and sack leader? Rob, you can go first.
Leading rusher, I'll go Jalen Wright. Leading rusher. Receiver, man, I'll go McCoy, but I'm not sleeping on Thornton at all. Man, I think he could have a big year.
Leading tackler would probably be Aaron Beasley. I mean, you can go down the list and
I'd take Beasley for sure.
The sack leader's interesting, Austin, because you can go a number of different ways here.
Yeah, you could. I think the receiver thing too is, I think in catches it'll be McCoy, in yardage it'll be whoever's in the slot, whether that's Thornton or Squirrel. You're right on Beasley, in my opinion, but don't sleep on Arion Carter. I think, especially if he can assert himself early, I think he becomes
leading tackler as a freshman.
I'm just saying, don't sleep on him. I think it'll be Beasley, but I think Arion Carter's going to play more than people think. Sack guy, I just don't think at this point. I think that if you want to just go, okay, who's probably going to play, who's probably going to, get home in some of these, kind of, easy games. I think it'll be a guy like Roman Harrison, but the potential is there for one of the other guys that has a lot more talent to be the leading guy with sacks, but they've not done it. So how can you say, how can you just say James Pierce? Yeah, James Pierce. He's not gotten on the field consistently enough to say that, or Joshua Josephs or whoever. So I don't think you can go down, and I would go Jalen Wright on leading rusher.
Yeah, I think on the defensive side, there's some guys who padded some numbers last year in some mop-up duties, to make themselves. James Pierce had more sacks than Joshua Josephs and played an eighth of the amount of snaps that he played. So that thing can be a little bit misleading. I think the question is who's going to lead them in SEC play in sacks, because that would determine who stepped up. And it may be a linebacker. They may have to blitz. We'll see. Until Joshua Josephs and James Pierce shows that they can get home, they may have
maybe
to blitz.
Arion Carter, Hubs.
You slept like 18 hours last night. Arion Carter not going to be the leading tackler in his defense in his freshman year. Going to have a solid year. Will not be the leading tackler.
He'll play a lot of snaps.
I said I took Beasley. I said, but I'm not sleeping on it. I think he can play a lot more than people think.
Go back to bed. Going to play well, but going to play a good bit, but not going to be the leading tackler.
The thing about the sacks, like Roman Harrison, even with Byron Young here, he plays a ton of snaps, and he'll play a ton of snaps next year. In terms of getting sacks, he had 2.5 sacks against Vanderbilt. I know that's an SEC game, I get it, but talk about padding your stats. He just doesn't get back there and finish as much as you like. But, maybe there's a difference here in this year. Obviously, as you guys have all said, the potential's there for Joshua Josephs and, Pierce, and obviously Herring as well as a true freshman. But, we'll see. They got to go out and do it.
Have you seen that gif, Eric, of Jimbo where he tells him, that's what I did with Hubs just then. I said something positive about a kid just because I knew he would come in and just crap on it, and it brings out his negativity.
I'm a hater. That'll be on the board next. Hubs doesn't think Arion Carter can play.
See, I thought the Kirby comment the other day would have been a great threat on the board. It never showed up.
No, because I was too negative about everything.
Now Hubs is like, AP just got slapped in the head with a killer whale tail fin.
I didn't see killer whales, just humpbacks.
All right. This is from Jackson Smith. What advice would you give to someone who's trying to get in the business of sports media recruiting coverage?
Relationships, man. Don't make phone calls. Go see people. Matt Ray did that. Matt Ray started doing this as kind of a fan, like that wanted to dive into recruiting. He started going to see kids. He didn't just look at, what a few people were saying. He went out and got his own information. He went out and did it his own way. When I started this, I went through, before I was working for Hubs, when I was just doing it grassroots, I'd get on whitepages.com and I'd look up Stevens in Flower Mound, Texas. And the 17th Stevens I called was finally Nick Stevens. Those type of things. Get out and go see people, work relationships, Don't just take what other people are saying and roll with it. Find your own information. And again, it's all about people. It's all about people. It's all about people.
Brent, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think he's exactly right. I mean, you can teach yourself to write. You can get better as a writer. Nobody's judging writing these days like they did with sports writing in the 40s and 50s, 60s. It's different now. It's about the information. Go get your relationships together, your information. The other thing I would say too is don't be an expert before you have experience. There's a lot of people out there who are telling everybody how it is, who don't have enough experience to be able to have all of those hot take opinions at this point to establish the credibility that they need to have to make it long-term in the business.
All right, let's go to Athlon. He's got a couple of recruiting questions here. Thoughts on Russell a few days out, AP?
Arkansas has made it interesting. I still think it's Tennessee. I still lean Tennessee. And I think the kids just felt a connection with Jerry Mack and a connection with the Tennessee staff and feels really comfortable here. But, I said that leaving the visit, I said Tennessee remains the pick for me. But you've got to withstand the hometown team where he's surrounded by Razorback fans for literally almost 3 weeks. We're up against it. I still think Tennessee, though, is he is playing everything close to the vest. He's not doing a whole lot of talking, and he'll do something at 7:45 Eastern time, 6:45 Central, coming up on Friday.
And whichever team he picks, they're going to have to hold on to him until December. This ain't going away.
No, 100%. Like Tennessee will have to continue to recruit that hard if they land him. I do think if he picks Arkansas, which I don't think he's going to, I think he's picking Tennessee. But if he did pick Arkansas, I think it'd be a lot harder for Tennessee to flip it, whereas it won't be as hard for Arkansas to flip it. But they had him committed once. He decommitted for a reason. He gave them a visit. He didn't jump right back in the boat. That tells me a lot heading into his announcement.
Anything new on Mike Matthews or Cam Franklin?
Cam Franklin, no, going to visit Miami and Auburn at the end of the month and start working towards a decision. And Mike Matthews, I think, the earth's getting big in the window.
And any more offensive linemen on the board, or is that going to be a thing where you wait until some film comes out of senior season?
No, I think if Bennett Warren gets in, I think Tennessee's, pretty good spot there exiting summer.
Okay, we'll go on to Groverly. Where do y'all see the floor and the ceiling for this recruiting class, SEC and nationally? Brent, do you think this is still a team or a class when it's all said and done that can certainly be top 10 in the country and probably top 5 in the Southeastern Conference? They got some work to do, of course, but I think that's certainly still in line for Tennessee.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility. I mean, AP would know the answer better than that to me. I mean, you can finish top 10 in the country nationally in the middle of the pack in the SEC. Mm-hmm. And, I think that's probably what we're looking at this point.
Well, of course, the league's got there 15 teams, so I think you're in the top third if you're in the top 5, and so you're still beating out 2/3 of the league, even if you kind of go down that route. Tennessee, a lot of their big fish, Mike Matthews, Edwin Spillman, even guys like Amari Jefferson, who is a coin flip, Braylon Russell, Bennett Warren, Kai Bates, Danny Okoye. These are all high-end guys that are still not come off the board. So Tennessee's got the best chance to kind of be, drafting in the 10th spot, and then use the draft to get by several cars and rock it up with some decisions on the horizon.
All right, we will quickly end here with this baseball one from Sam Smith, 2233. After the draft, how are we feeling about the pitching staff? 218 days out from opening day. Sophomores and freshmen, who are some names who could step up? Yeah, you're going to replace some guys in the bullpen. I mean, we'll see exactly what, who decides to do what. I mean, at the time of this recording, I think Bryce Jenkins is going to go professionally. We'll see about Zach Joyce. I think the Angels, signing or drafting him makes things very interesting because, of course, Ben and his injury history as well. We'll keep an eye on Aaron Combs over the next couple of days, see if, potentially he could be an undrafted free agent guy or if he's going to return. So we'll see. I just think the biggest thing in terms of pitching, Well, you won with high school. There was a couple guys that could have been picked. They were passed on, obviously, thought to be some draft risks, but, hard to sign. So they passed on them. But, I mean, yeah, a lot of these guys are going to be pushing for, weekend bullpen. Depending on what happens with Luke Holman, of course, that's the big fish left in the transfer portal for Tennessee, who's after, and LSU and Mississippi State and Alabama are in that one as well. So a lot of these freshmen could be pushing for potentially a weekend if it comes to that, but obviously some big-time guys to fill in the bullpen as well. So, like shortstop, a lot of guys are going to have to step up and adapt to the college life in a hurry, but Tennessee won the high school portion of the draft, and they did really, really well in that regard. I think you got to be really pleased with losing only likely Carson Rucker. All right, that's going to do it here for this edition of the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. Every single week, it's presented by Exterior Home Solutions. For a free estimate, go ahead and give them a call today. That's at 865-524-5888, or visit them online, exteriorhomesolutions.com. Got an incredible promo going on right now. If you're listening to this and you aren't a member of us over at Volquest.com on the General's Quarters, $1 for 1 month, new subscription deal right now, a summertime deal. It's not going to be out there for much longer, so join us, tell your friends, tell your family, and we got a whole lot going on over at Volquest.com with recruiting and, of course, football camp. It starts just around the corner with SEC Media Days next week. For Brent Hubbs, Austin Price, and Rob Lewis, I am Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys as always. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, everybody.